Hello, my name is Miles Carter. I'm 38, a widower, and on most days I'm just a dad trying to keep the lights on for my 8-year-old daughter, Luna. That morning, in March though, I woke up believing that the lights might finally get brighter. I'd been chasing this one shot for 14 straight months. Sky Corps. The name alone made people in my line of work sit up straighter. They design guidance systems for commercial drones, satellites, anything that needs to fly straight and true. Starting salary was triple what I scraped together doing freelance repairs in a rented garage bay that smelled like burnt coffee and hydraulic fluid. Benefits, real health insurance, a tuition program that would cover every cent of Luna's school through college if she wanted it. All of it was waiting on the 35th floor of their glass tower downtown, and the final interview started at 9 sharp. I kissed Luna's forehead while she was still half asleep, left a note on the fridge that said, "Daddy's going to bring home good news tonight," and put on the only suit I owned that didn't have a mystery stain on the lapel. Navy blue, bought for my wife's funeral 4 years ago. I hadn't worn it since. The 7 train rattled under the city. I stood the whole way, one hand on the pole, the other clutching a leather portfolio with every certificate I'd earned since getting out of the Army 10 years earlier. I went over answers in my head like a kid cramming for the SAT. Tell us about a time you had to make a hard decision under pressure. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I had them polished, honest, ready. Westlake Station. 2 stops early so I could walk the last 8 minutes and get my breathing steady. I stepped onto the platform at 8:42 a.m. exactly. The tower was 6 blocks north, a blade of mirrored glass cutting the low gray sky. I remember checking my watch, thinking I'd even have time for a decent coffee if I hurried. That's when the world decided to move first. It started as a low rumble, the kind you feel in your teeth before your ears catch up. Then the platform bucked like someone had yanked a rug out from under the city. The overhead lights swung wild. Concrete dust rained down. A woman's scream cut off when the ceiling tile hit her shoulder. The escalators jammed and people tumbled over one another like pins. I dropped the portfolio, instinct older than memory taking over. 10 years in uniform, 2 tours in places where the ground shook because of bombs, not plates. I knew the sound of things falling apart. Sirens were already screaming somewhere above us when I pushed through the panic toward the stairs. I had to get topside, had to see how bad it was, had to make sure Luna's school was far enough east of the epicenter. My phone had no signal. I ran. The street was chaos. Cars accordion folded into one another. A city bus lay on its side like a slaughtered animal. Glass glittered everywhere. I tasted blood. I'd bitten my tongue without noticing. I was half a block from the Sky Corps tower when I heard it, barely audible under the shouting and the far-off wail of first responders. A weak, pained sound coming from the narrow service alley between a Starbucks and an office building that now leaned like it was taking a bow. I turned in. Half the alley's brick wall had pancaked onto the ground, rebar twisted out like broken bones. And beneath a slab of concrete the size of a pickup truck, a woman was pinned by her right leg, blood pooled dark and steady around the cuff of her gray slacks. Expensive slacks, the kind people wear when they're about to sit on the 35th floor and decide someone else's future. She was conscious, but only just. Her eyes fluttered, trying to focus on me through the dust. Hey, look at me! I dropped to my knees beside her. I've got you! Her pulse was thready under my fingers. Femoral artery was nicked. I could feel the warm spurts against my palm even before I looked. I ripped off my tie, the navy one I'd ironed twice last night, looped it high on her thigh and pulled tight with my teeth in one hand the way they taught us in Kandahar. The bleeding slowed to an ooze. She tried to speak, a rasp. Can't. Miss. You're not going anywhere until you're stable, I told her. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. I wedged my shoulder under the slab, testing. No chance of lifting it alone. I yelled toward the street for help. No one heard over the noise. So I stayed on my knees in the blood and the dust and kept pressure steady, talking to keep her with me. "What's your name?" I asked. "Elena." "Elena, I'm Miles. I need you to stay awake for me, okay? Tell me something. Anything." She managed half a smile through cracked lips. "I was supposed to interview someone important today." I laughed once, short and sharp. "Funny. So was I." Her eyes found mine. Something passed between us, recognition maybe, or just 2 strangers refusing to let the other slip away. I told her about Luna's gap-toothed grin, about how she wanted to build robots when she grew up, about the note on the fridge, anything to keep her breathing. Minutes bled together, 18, maybe 20. I lost track. My arms shook. My suit was ruined. The tie was soaked dark. Finally, boots on pavement, voices shouting, "Clear!" Paramedics slid a collar around her neck, took over the tourniquet, slid a backboard under her. One of them clapped my shoulder. "You saved her life, man." I stood up slowly, legs numb. Blood, hers and some of mine, dripped from my fingers. I looked at my watch through the cracked face. 9:27 a.m. The 35th floor was 26 minutes ago and a lifetime away. Elena's hand found mine as they lifted her, weak but deliberate. "Thank you," she whispered. "I owe you everything." I squeezed once. "Just live," I told her. "That's payment enough." They loaded her into the ambulance. Doors slammed. Sirens faded toward Harborview. I stood alone in the alley, the city screaming around me, and realized I just let the biggest opportunity of my life walk away on a stretcher. And for the first time in 4 years, I didn't feel even a flicker of regret. I don't remember the walk home. Just flashes, sirens, broken glass crunching under my shoes, people crying into phones that still had no signal. My suit jacket was gone somewhere between the alley and the hill. The white shirt was stiff with dried blood that wasn't mine. When I finally pushed open the door to our little 2-bedroom rental on Capitol Hill, the quiet hit me like a slap. Luna was sitting cross-legged on the living room rug, watching the emergency broadcast with the volume low. Her school had closed, half the district was without power. She looked up, eyes wide, then ran and crashed into me so hard I almost fell. "Daddy, you're hurt! It's not my blood, baby." I knelt, held her at arm's length so she could see my face was okay. "I'm fine. Promise." She studied me the way only 8-year-olds can, like they're looking straight through every lie adults tell themselves. Then she hugged me again, tighter. The next days blurred. Aftershocks rattled the windows every few hours. Luna slept in my bed, clutching the stuffed orca her mom had bought her the week before the accident. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the morning on a loop. Not the earthquake. The moment I chose the alley over the elevator. 4 years ago, Sarah died on impact when a drunk driver ran a red light on I-5. I was supposed to be in the passenger seat. I'd stayed late at the office finishing a report. Survivor's guilt is a quiet poison. For months, I drank it like water. Quit my job at the aerospace firm the same week they offered me lead engineer. Couldn't sit in an office chair without hearing the screech of tires that never actually reached my ears. Luna was 4 when she found me on the bathroom floor with a bottle of pills I never opened. She crawled into my lap and whispered, "I still need you to read me stories." That was the last night I touched anything stronger than coffee. I rebuilt myself around her, freelance gigs at 2 a.m. when she was asleep, online courses, teaching myself stress analysis software on a cracked laptop that sounded like a jet engine. Every dollar went to rent, groceries, and the savings jar labeled Luna's future. I told myself the SkyCorps interview was the finish line. One yes, and the jar would fill itself. Now the jar sat on the kitchen counter, still half empty, and I couldn't even look at it. Across town, in a private room at Harborview Medical Center, Elena Quinn stared at a similar ceiling. Her right leg was elevated in a cage of metal pins and screws. The surgeon said she'd walk again, maybe even run, but not for a year. She listened to the doctor the way she once listened to board members, polite, distant, already calculating next moves. The divorce from Victor Lang had been final for 18 months, but the headlines still followed her. Tech heiress or gold digger? The tabloids had asked when she walked away with nothing but her own name and a non-disclosure agreement thick enough to stop a bullet. Victor had been charming until the cameras turned off. Then the charm turned into fists and threats. She left the night he put her through a glass coffee table. The settlement was hush money disguised as generosity. She took the HR director job at SkyCorps because it was the one place no one asked about Victor Lang. She wore tailored suits like armor and kept her office door closed. People called her Ice Queen behind her back. She let them. Ice didn't bruise. That morning, she'd been on her way to the final interview for the senior propulsion engineer position. The candidate's resume had stood out months ago. Army veteran, flawless references, a cover letter that read like someone who still believed in second chances. Miles Carter. She'd circled his name in red, scheduled him last because she wanted the day to end on a high note. Now his file sat unopened on her locked laptop while she floated on painkillers, and the memory of a stranger's voice telling her about a little girl who wanted to build robots, two people in the same city, carrying different kinds of grief, both pretending they were fine being alone. Seattle kept shaking around us, knocking loose the things we thought we'd buried. Neither of us knew yet that the ground wasn't finished moving. 16 days after the earthquake, Seattle was still limping. Half the stoplights on the hill were dark, plywood-covered broken windows, and every coffee shop had a handwritten "cash only" sign taped to the door. I'd been living on 4 hours of sleep, patching neighbors' generators for $20 and a six-pack, trying to keep the savings jar from going negative before Luna's next school payment. That Tuesday, I dropped her at the library's after-school program, the only place with steady power, and told myself I'd use the 2 free hours to finish a stress report for a client in Spokane. I needed a corner that didn't smell like motor oil and crayons. I ended up at Anchorhead Coffee on Pine, a narrow brick box of a place that somehow still had Wi-Fi and an outlet that worked. I ordered the biggest drip they had, found a table in the back, and opened my battered laptop like nothing in the world had changed. That's when I saw her. She was already there, tucked against the far wall, one leg stretched out stiffly in a black medical boot. Crutches leaned against the chair like silent bodyguards. A knit beanie hid most of her dark hair, but the sharp line of her jaw and the way she held her mug, careful, deliberate, were unmistakable. Elena. She looked up at the exact second I did. Recognition flashed across her face, followed by something softer I couldn't name. She raised one hand, just a small lift of fingers, and motioned to the empty chair across from her. I crossed the room feeling like I was walking underwater. "Mind if I started. "Please." Her voice was lower than I remembered, rough around the edges from disuse. "Miles, right?" I nodded, sat. The chair scraped too loud. "How's the leg?" "Full of hardware and attitude." She managed half a smile. "Doctors say I'll set off airport scanners for life. Small price." An awkward beat. I rubbed the back of my neck. "Look, I never got the chance to—" "You saved my life," she cut in, gentle but firm. "We're past apologies." She tilted her head, studying me the way engineers study blueprints, looking for weak points and finding none. Then she reached into the bag at her side, pulled out a paper cup still wearing its cardboard sleeve, and slid it across the table. "I ordered this when I saw you come in. Black, 2 sugars. The barista said it's how you used to take it before everything went cash only." I stared at the cup like it might explode. "You remembered that?" "I remember everything from that morning," she said quietly. "It's pretty much the only thing that still feels real." Luna's library program ended in 45 minutes. I should have made an excuse and left. Instead, I wrapped my hands around the coffee she'd bought me and told her about the note on the fridge, about Luna asking why Daddy came home covered in someone else's blood, about the way my daughter hugged me like she was checking I still had a heartbeat. Elena listened without interrupting, the way people listen when they've learned silence can be a kind of medicine. When I finished, she told me her own version, about waking up in ICU with no one to call, about the company asking if she needed bereavement leave when the only thing that died was a meeting. She never said she was the interviewer. I never asked. After that, Tuesdays became a habit. I'd drop Luna at the library, claim the same back table, and Elena would already be there, boot traded for a lighter brace, crutches down to one. Some days we talked shop, tolerances, load paths, why the city's new emergency bolts were undersized. Some days we didn't talk at all. She read contracts, I ran simulations, and the quiet between us felt earned instead of empty. One afternoon, Luna got out early and came looking for me. She marched straight to our table, climbed into Elena's lap without asking, and demanded to know if the metal in her leg was titanium or stainless. "Grade 5 titanium," Elena answered, completely unfazed. "Stronger than steel, lighter than aluminum. Perfect for little girls who want to build robots someday." Luna's eyes went saucer-wide. "You know how to build robots?" "I know people who know people." Elena glanced at me, a question in it. That evening she handed Luna a small Lego Technic set, just a box with gears and motors, nothing fancy. My daughter carried it home like it was made of gold. I tried to pay her back. She wouldn't take the money. "Miles," she said, "let me do one thing that isn't about balancing a ledger." So I stopped offering. Spring crept in. The plywood came down from windows. The city started to breathe again, and every Tuesday the three of us, two adults and one 8-year-old who decided Elena belonged to us, carved out a pocket of normal in a coffee shop that wasn't on anyone's way home. I still hadn't asked what she did for work. She still hadn't told me she'd been the one holding my future in her hands the morning the world cracked open. Some truths take their time. The first offer came on a rainy Thursday in late April. Luna was at a friend's for a play date, and I was elbow deep in a busted hydraulic pump when my phone buzzed on the workbench. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. Miles Carter? The voice was crisp, professional. This is David Park with Helion Systems. Elena Quinn gave me your name. We're looking for a senior mechanical consultant on a 6-month contract. Starts Monday. Pays north of what SkyCorps was offering. She said you'd be perfect. I stood there with grease on my knuckles and the phone pressed to my ear, feeling the room tilt. Perfect, because the woman I pulled out of the rubble felt sorry for me. Thanks, I managed. I'll think about it. I hung up and stared at the pump like it had personally betrayed me. That night, Elena showed up at the house unannounced, holding a paper bag from the bakery Luna liked. She took one look at my face and knew. You said no, she guessed. I said I'd think about it. I wiped my hands on a rag that was more oil than cloth. But yeah, I'm not taking charity. It's not charity. It's a job you're qualified for, more than qualified. I don't want doors opened because someone feels indebted. The words came out sharper than I meant. I've been opening my own doors since Sarah died. I'll keep opening them. She set the bag on the counter, crossed her arms. You think I'd recommend someone who couldn't do the work? I think you feel like you owe me. And I think you're letting pride write checks the rest of you can't cash. Her voice stayed level, but her eyes flashed. Luna's school fees are due in 3 weeks. You're 2 months behind on the mortgage. You want to punish yourself? Fine. Don't punish her. I flinched like she'd slapped me. Because she was right, and I hated it. She left without the pastries. We didn't speak for 9 days. I avoided Anchorhead. She didn't text. The silence felt like another aftershock. Then Luna's 8th birthday rolled around. I'd saved for a small party, cupcakes from the grocery store, a second-hand bicycle painted sky blue. 10 kids in the backyard, chaos and laughter and grass stains. At 3:12 p.m., the doorbell rang. I opened it expecting a late parent. Elena stood on the porch in jeans and a soft green sweater, holding a chocolate cake with shaky piping that read, Happy 8th, Luna, in a child's handwriting. One crutch tucked under her arm, rain misting her hair. I made it myself, she said before I could speak. It's probably lopsided. Luna invited me last week. I wasn't going to let a fight with her dad stop me from showing up. Luna barreled past me, threw her arms around Elena's waist. You came. The kids sang Happy Birthday off key. Elena stayed for the whole party, helped cut cake, let the birthday girl boss her around like a deputy. When the last kid left and Luna fell asleep on the couch surrounded by new Lego pieces, Elena started cleaning, without being asked. I finally broke the silence. I was an ass. You were scared, she said, stacking paper plates. There's a difference. I still don't want the job. I know. She turned, leaned against the counter, etc. But I'm done trying to rescue you. If you want advice, ask. If you want to stay stubborn, that's your call. Luna stirred on the couch, mumbled in her sleep. Don't fight. We both looked over. Something shifted in the room, like the air itself got tired of waiting. That night I sat up until the sky turned the color of weak coffee. Luna's question from weeks ago kept circling. If I have to choose between my dreams and saving someone, which one do I pick? At 5:47 a.m., I opened my laptop, pulled the business plan I'd been nursing in secret for 2 years, Carter Mechanics, independent engineering consulting for small aerospace startups. 43 pages of numbers, projections, and hope I'd never shown anyone. I printed it, put it in a plain manila folder, and drove to Elena's building downtown before I could talk myself out of it. She answered the door in running clothes, surprise softening into something cautious. I held out the folder. This isn't a resume, it's a plan. If you think it's garbage, tell me and I'll burn it. If you think it has legs, give me feedback like you would any other engineer. No favors, no pity, just the truth. She took it, fingers brushing mine for the first time since the alley. Deal, she said. I nodded once and walked away before pride could change its mind. The ground didn't move that morning, but for the first time in years, I felt like maybe it didn't have to. Elena didn't hand me a golden ticket. She did something harder. She treated the plan like it was any other pitch that crossed her desk. 2 days later, she sent a single email. No pleasantries, just bullet points. Market size is real but narrow. Focus on reusable rocket startups south of Everett. Your hourly rate is 22% too low. Raise it or you'll train clients to undervalue you. Attached, warm intros to 3 founders I met at last month's demo day. Tell them I sent you. Nothing more. That was it. No good luck. No safety net. I sent the first proposal on a Thursday. By Monday, I had a signed contract for failure analysis work on a liquid oxygen pump that kept cavitating at 40,000 feet. The check cleared 2 weeks later, first 5 figures I'd ever seen with my own name on the memo line. I rented a 400-square-foot corner in a makerspace near the canal, painted the cinder block wall myself, and hung a hand-lettered sign, Carter Mechanics, Independent Engineering. Luna helped with the lettering. Her capital C still looked like a smile. The second client came from another of Elena's introductions, then a third. Word spread the way it does among engineers who'd rather pay for someone who's actually turned a wrench in a war zone than another consultant with a Harvard slide deck. By fall, I was turning work away. Elena never asked for credit. She'd just show up some evenings with takeout pho and sit on an overturned crate while I ran finite element analysis on a cracked landing strut. Luna would do homework on the floor, occasionally looking up to ask Elena how to spell perseverance. Some nights, the 3 of us walked down to the water and watched the ferries cut white scars across the sound. No one called it dating. No one needed to. One year, to the day after the earthquake, Luna came home from school waving a rolled-up piece of poster board. She made us sit on the living room rug like it was show and tell. She unrolled it carefully. Crayon and marker, a cherry tree in full bloom, 3 stick figures beneath it. Me with my 2 big work boots, Elena with her dark hair and the faint scar that ran along her calf where the rebar had been, and Luna in the middle, holding both our hands. At the bottom, in purple block letters, "Thank you for stopping that day, Daddy. Because of that, I have a new mom now." Elena made a sound I'd never heard from her before, half laugh, half sob, and covered her mouth. I felt my own throat close. Luna looked worried. "Did I draw it wrong?" I pulled her into my lap. "You drew it perfect, kiddo." Elena wiped her eyes with the sleeve of my old army sweatshirt she'd started wearing around the house. When she could speak, she said, "I didn't come looking for a family." "I know," I told her. "Neither did I." We didn't do a big wedding. One Saturday in June, we drove out to Discovery Park with Luna and a justice of the peace who owed me a favor for fixing his vintage Mustang. Elena wore a simple white sundress and the same brace she'd traded the boot for months earlier. Luna carried the rings in a pouch she'd sewn herself in art class. We said the usual words, plus a few of our own. I promised to keep stopping when someone needed it. Elena promised to keep reminding me I was worth more than the worst day I'd ever had. Luna promised to keep drawing us under the same tree until we got too old to stand under it. Afterward, we ate sandwiches on the beach and watched the sun drop into the Olympics. No fireworks, no reception, just the 3 of us and the quiet certainty that we'd already survived the hardest part. Carter Mechanics outgrew the makerspace. I hired my first employee, a kid fresh out of the Army who reminded me of myself at 25. The savings jar overflowed. We replaced it with a college fund that now has Luna's name on it in permanent marker. Some nights I still wake up reaching for a tie that isn't there, feeling phantom blood on my hands. Elena reaches over, laces her fingers through mine without opening her eyes, and the dream lets go. I never worked for Sky Corps, never needed to. Turns out the biggest opportunity of my life wasn't waiting on the 35th floor. It was bleeding in an alley, asking me to choose between a future I'd planned and a life I never saw coming. I stopped. And because I did, I got both.